Don't skip this. If you're watching, then stay till the end, because in this documentary we uncover 5 powerful theories behind the extinction of Homo Naledi. It's not just about how they vanished, but who they were, their social structure, their spirituality, love and sex, family and birth, daily life, and even how humans first discovered their existence. This is one of the most fascinating human stories ever told, and it's worth every moment of your time. Imagine this. You've been told your whole life that humans, us, are the pinnacle, that we're the first, the last, the only real story worth telling. Civilization, 6,000 years old. Ancient kings, pyramids, temples, all of that fits neatly into a timeline you've been taught to accept. But what if I told you that before you, before your family, before your entire civilization, there were others? Not myths, not legends, not stories in a holy book, but real beings, flesh and bone, hands that carved stone, eyes that reflected firelight, children that were born screaming into the dark of caves, long before you ever existed. And here's the first shock. Humans, Homo sapiens, are not unique. We are the last survivors of a family that once had at least 8 different species walking this earth. 8 kinds of humans. Some were small, 3 feet tall, tiny like children, yet fully grown. Others were massive, muscular, with brains even larger than ours. And some were so strange that scientists, when they first uncovered them, didn't even believe what they were seeing. Let me ask you this. If we are truly special, if we are the chosen ones, why are we the only ones left? 7 species are gone. 1 remains, and that one is you. But tonight, we're not talking about you. We're talking about them, the ones who were erased, the ones who history forgot, the ones who force you to ask the most terrifying question of all. What does it mean to be human, if others, just like us, once walked this earth? Our story begins in the dark, South Africa, the year 2013. A team of scientists crawl through the Rising Star Cave system, a place so narrow, so claustrophobic that only the smallest, slimmest members of the expedition could even fit. Imagine this, a shaft so tight that you have to squeeze your body sideways, shoulders scraping limestone, breathing shallow just to move. At the end of that passage, silence and bones. Bones unlike anything they had ever seen before. The skulls were too small, the arms too long, the hands curved like they belonged to a climber, the teeth human-like, yet primitive. At first, the scientists thought they had stumbled upon children, but there were adults here too, whole families. They had uncovered an ancient burial chamber, hidden away for hundreds of thousands of years. The scientists carefully pulled the bones out, piece by piece, a femur here, a jawbone there, and slowly, the creature revealed itself. This was not a chimpanzee, not a gorilla, not even one of the early known humans like Homo erectus. This was something else, something that didn't fit neatly on the human family tree. The name they gave it was Homo Naledi, Naledi meaning star in the local Sotho language, a nod to the Rising Star caves where they were found. But here's where the shockwave hit the world of science. At first, researchers assumed these bones were ancient, maybe 2 million years old. Creatures like this, with such small brains and primitive features, had to be relics from the distant past, right? Wrong. When the dating results came back, scientists were stunned. Homo Naledi lived just 300,000 years ago. Think about that. That's not ancient prehistory. That's practically yesterday in evolutionary time, at 300,000 years ago. Homo sapiens, our species, already existed, which means, at some point in history, we shared this planet with them. 2 different kinds of humans, living at the same time, maybe in the same forests, maybe looking each other in the eye. Let me pause here, because this isn't just a science fact. This is a psychological earthquake. You've been raised to believe that you are unique, that your species is chosen, intelligent, destined. But now, here's proof that we weren't alone. Another kind of human lived alongside us, not just an ape, not just an animal, a human, with families, with hens, with fire, and, possibly, with beliefs. Because here's the most chilling detail about the discovery. The bodies of Homo Naledi were found deep inside the caves, not scattered by chance. not dragged by animals, but placed there deliberately. Burial. They were burying their dead. And if they were burying their dead, what does that mean? It means they understood death. It means they felt loss. It means they may have believed in something beyond life. Stop and let that sink in. A species with a brain smaller than half of ours, maybe the size of an orange, could have been practicing ritual burial. How? Why? Did they mourn? Did they whisper names? Did they imagine an afterlife? Or were they simply hiding the smell of the dead from predators? We don't know, but the possibility is terrifying, because it means intelligence, consciousness, spirituality may not belong only to us. And now the biggest question of all, if Homo Naledi lived alongside us, what happened to them? Why are we here, and they are not? So who exactly were the Naledi? Picture a creature that doesn't quite fit. At first glance, you'd call them human. Their faces, their hands, their feet, so familiar. But look closer, and something feels off. Their skulls were small, shockingly small. The average Homo Naledi brain was about 465 cubic centimeters, barely a third of the modern human brain. To put that in perspective, your brain could weigh 3 pounds. There's barely tipped the scale at 1. And yet, in that tiny brain, there was enough intelligence to shape tools, light fires, and, possibly, bury their dead. Their bodies told another story. Homo Naledi stood about 5 feet tall. Males weighed maybe 100 pounds, females even less. Slim, weary, built not for brute force but for endurance. Their arms were long, with fingers curved like hooks, perfect for climbing. Imagine them moving through the trees, gripping branches with ease, yet also striding upright across the rocky plains of Africa. They were a hybrid of old and new, shoulders like apes, legs like us, hands built for both climbing and crafting. A species caught in the middle, half primitive, half modern. But here's the strange thing, they weren't supposed to exist. By 300,000 years ago, Earth should have belonged to advanced humans. Like us, Homo sapiens were already carving out territory in Africa. Neanderthals ruled in Europe. Homo erectus had spread into Asia. And yet, in the caves of South Africa, Naledi endured. They were like a ghost population, a hidden branch of the human family tree, surviving quietly in the shadows while other, more powerful humans spread across the globe. So what was life like for Naledi? Imagine waking up in the soft dark of a cave. The air is cool, the ground hard beneath your body. Around you, others stir, children, mothers, hunters, elders. Your family, your tribe, the first sound of the day. Not birds, not insects, but fire. The crackle of burning wood. Evidence suggests Homo Naledi may have used fire deep inside their caves, not only to cook food, but to light their way through the darkness. Now, step outside. The African landscape stretches before you, golden grasslands broken by ridges of stone, and patches of forest. Predators stalk here, lions, leopards, saber-toothed cats. Naledi weren't the kings of this world. They were prey as much as predator. So what did they eat? Their teeth hold the answer, worn down, flattened, shaped by a diet of roots, tubers, fruits, and meat when they could get it. They weren't picky. They couldn't afford to be. Naledi survived by eating whatever the land offered, a strategy that may have kept them alive for hundreds of thousands of years. But hunting was dangerous. With their small frames, they couldn't take down massive animals like buffalo or elephants the way later humans did. Instead, they likely scavenged meat from carcasses, cracked bones to suck out marrow, and used simple tools, sharpened stones, perhaps wooden spears, to catch smaller prey. Imagine them crouched around a kill, slicing flesh, passing food from hand to hand. Imagine children gnawing on bones, elders teaching the young where to find tubers, where to dig for water. This was survival. Simple, raw, brutal. Now here's where it gets more intimate. Life wasn't just about eating and hunting. It was about continuing the species. So, how did Naledi give birth? With bodies so small, childbirth would have been dangerous, just as it was for early Homo sapiens. Fossil evidence suggests that Naledi females gave birth to infants with small skulls. But childbirth was still a painful, risky ordeal. Imagine a woman crouched in the dust, other females surrounding her, whispering, comforting, helping, the first cries of a newborn echoing through the cave. Infants were fragile, many likely didn't survive. But those who did were raised not just by mothers, but by the group. Naledi, like modern humans, may have practiced cooperative breeding, where aunts, grandmothers, and older siblings helped care for the young. Names? We'll never know. Language? That's another mystery. Their brains were small, but their throats and tongues may have allowed for simple speech. Maybe not the rich vocabulary of sapiens, but sounds, gestures, calls, enough to warn of danger, to organize hunts, to comfort children. And here's the haunting thought. Did they sing? Did they tell stories in the dark, round the fire, or was their language limited to grunts, simple commands and cries? We can't be sure, but silence is unlikely. Where there is fire, where there are families, where there are children, there is always voice. And yes, they loved, not love as we define it in poems and movies, but in the raw, biological sense, attraction, desire, pair bonding. Male and female Naledi would have sought each other out, not for romance, not for candlelight dinners, but for survival of the species. Sex was biology, but also social glue. Think of it, in small tribes, every birth mattered. Every union ensured that the group continued. There may have been competition among males for partners. There may have been bonds, a male and female staying together to raise a child, or perhaps more open systems, where community raised the young regardless of who fathered them. We don't know the details, but we know this: without sex, without reproduction, Naledi would not have lasted hundreds of thousands of years, and in that, they were like us, flesh seeking flesh, the spark of life igniting in the dark. Now here's where Homo Naledi begins to disturb us, because those bones in the cave, they weren't left there by accident. They were placed, hidden deep in darkness. Why? Some scientists say it was practical. Maybe they wanted to avoid predators by hiding their dead. Underground, maybe the stench of corpses drew danger, but others suggest something far stranger. That Naledi were performing ritual burial, that they recognized death, that they cared enough to carry the bodies of their loved ones into the deepest parts of the cave, and leave them there, away from the living, in silence and shadow. Think of what that means. A species with a brain barely bigger than an orange, contemplating death, maybe even imagining an afterlife. If true, Naledi may have been the earliest humans to develop something like religion. So what did their communities look like? Small, tight-knit, perhaps a few dozen at most. Too many mouths would mean starvation, too few meant extinction. Leaders may have existed. The strongest hunter, the wisest elder, the mother with the most children. But hierarchy would have been fluid. In groups that small, survival depended on cooperation, not dominance. Conflict was inevitable, but exile was death. To be part of the group meant safety. To be cast out meant certain doom. So every Naledi learned, the group is everything. Now you see them, not as bones, not as fossils, but as people. People who woke with the fire, who hunted with stone, who held their children close, buried their dead, whispered in the dark, and looked at the stars, never knowing that one day we would look back at them. But their story doesn't end here, because the greatest mystery is not how they lived, but how they died. Why are we here, and they are gone? That's the riddle of Homo Naledi. And in part 3, we'll face it head on. Imagine this, a species of human beings, alive not millions of years ago, but possibly at the same time as the first great pyramids were being built in Egypt. A species so ancient in appearance, tiny brains, curved fingers, ape-like shoulders that scientists at first assumed they must have been from some forgotten chapter of prehistory, long before us. And yet, evidence suggests they lived astonishingly recently, maybe even alongside Homo sapiens. That species is Homo Naledi, and the greatest unanswered question is, what happened to them? Number 1, the vanishing puzzle. When the first Naledi fossils were uncovered deep inside the Rising Star Cave system in South Africa, the surprise wasn't just their strange anatomy, it was the age. The bones were dated to roughly 236,000 to 335,000 years ago. That might sound like distant time, but think about it. At that moment, our own ancestors, early Homo sapiens, already walked the earth. In other words, Naledi were not just relics of some far-gone world. They were our neighbors. So here's the puzzle. If Homo Naledi managed to survive so late into history, why did they vanish completely? Number 2. The climate shift theory. One possibility is climate. Around 300,000 years ago, Africa was experiencing harsh environmental shifts. Ice ages pulsed across the globe, changing rainfall patterns, drying up rivers, shrinking the forests and grasslands Naledi might have relied on for food. For a species with a brain only about 1/3 the size of ours, adapting to rapidly shifting environments would have been brutally difficult. While larger-brained humans could migrate long distances, invent new tools, or form wider social networks, Naledi may have been trapped, restricted to small regions, dependent on stable caves, fruiting seasons, and familiar hunting grounds. And when those ecosystems collapsed, so did they. Number 3. The competition theory. But climate alone might not explain it, because there's another, darker theory. We were the problem. Imagine early Homo sapiens or even other human cousins like Homo heidelbergensis encountering Naledi. To us, they might have looked strange, even frightening, small-bodied, with odd proportions and primitive faces. Would we have seen them as equals, or as competitors for food, land, and resources? History gives us a clue. Whenever two human species overlapped, the weaker one often vanished. Neanderthals disappeared after modern humans arrived in Europe. The hobbits of Indonesia, Homo floresiensis, faded shortly after Homo sapiens reached their island. So perhaps Naledi, too, fell victim to the arrival of a smarter, more adaptable cousin. Whether through direct conflict, competition for game, or simply being outbred and outnumbered, Naledi may have been pushed to extinction by us. Number 4. The cave mystery. But then comes the strangest part, the caves. The Rising Star Caves where Naledi were found are not ordinary fossil sites. The bones were discovered deep in a chamber so inaccessible that modern cavers had to squeeze through narrow crevices to reach it. And here's the shocking detail. Scientists believe the bodies weren't dragged there by predators or washed in by floods. No, Naledi themselves seem to have placed their dead deep inside the cave. Think about that. With brains barely the size of an orange, this species may have practiced a form of ritualized burial. If that's true, it changes everything. It means Naledi weren't just primitive survivors, they had symbolic thought. They may have believed in an afterlife, or at least recognized death in a way far beyond instinct. So the extinction of Naledi isn't just the loss of another human branch. It's the loss of a species that may have had the first sparks of culture, ritual, maybe even religion. Number 5. The ghost theory. And here's where the story gets eerie. Some scientists suggest Naledi may not have gone extinct as early as we think. Their bones, sealed away in the cave, can't yet give us a precise last appearance date. What if small groups of Naledi clung on, hidden in isolated corners of Africa, long after the official timeline says they were gone? Could they have survived until 100,000 years ago? 50,000, even later? There are whispers of African folktales about little people in the forests, strange humans who were not quite human. Are these just myths or echoes of real encounters between our ancestors and the last of the Naledi? If even a fragment of that is true, then Naledi may not just be our ancient cousins. They may be part of the ghosts that haunted our rise. Number 6. Why it matters. Why should we care about the extinction of Homo Naledi? Because their story isn't just about them. It's about us. We like to think of humanity as inevitable, the chosen species, the destined survivors. But Naledi reminds us that we are just one branch among many. Smarter brains did not guarantee their survival. Rituals did not save them. Strength, adaptation, even intelligence are no shield against the forces of nature or against other humans. And maybe the scariest part is this: Naledi lived shockingly close to our time. They are not separated from us by vast oceans of years. They are separated by a heartbeat, a blink in the timeline of history. Their disappearance asks a haunting question. If it happened to them, why not us? So picture it, a small band of Naledi, crouched around a fire deep inside a cave, their shadows flickering on the walls. Outside, the world is changing, climate shifting, new humans spreading, predators circling. Inside, they huddle together, whispering in a language we will never know, guarding the last spark of their kind. And then, one day, silence. No one left to bury the dead. No one left to carry their stories. Just bones in the dark, waiting hundreds of thousands of years to be found. That is the mystery of Homo Naledi, a species so close to us, yet so far. A mirror showing us what we could have been and what we could still become. Because in the end, extinction is not their story alone. It is a story that every species, even ours, must one day face.